Welcome for joining us today. We're going to give it a few minutes just for let everyone trickle in here. What I got going today for you is Battery 101 IQ installer training. My name is Daniel Moyer. I'm one of the sales support trainer here at SimpliPhi Power. I also have with me Chuck holding on the line with us, and he is one of the fellow trainers here at SimpliPhi Power. Really quickly, a couple housekeeping items before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, go ahead and put them into the Q&A chat button. It's a button either at the top or the bottom of your screen. Type in your questions there. If somebody wants to just pop in a quick hello into the Q&A chat, we'll just know that it's working right now. If somebody can please do that. And another item is that this is a NABCEB accredited course. So if you're looking for your continuing education credits, go ahead and wait to the end of the presentation, and we will have an email that'll pop up, and that email is going to be where you email me to get your credits. Thank you for putting in the Chris. Thank you for putting in that Q&A for us. We know it's working. So again, Q&A is where you're going to ask questions. At the end is you're going to get your NABCEB. We're going to have an email that pops up. Something interesting in today's talk we're going to talk a little bit about, and Chuck's going to get into that, is there was a big ruling here in California about the NEM 3.0. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, not get too deep into it, but it's something that's very important here in California that just was released a few days ago. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Quickly going to talk about history. SimpliPhi Power was originally founded as OES Energy back in 2010, which in the energy storage game is kind of a long time ago. We originally were founded in the film and broadcast energy, and we wanted to come to market with a safer battery, a safer chemistry. So since the beginning, we've always been using lithium iron phosphate batteries, and that's something we've stuck with this whole time. At 2010, there were a lot of batteries on the market that were cobalt-based that were making the news for being unsafe, for going into thermal runaway. So we've always been focused on safety from the beginning using our lithium iron phosphate. 2011, 2012, we had a great opportunity to work with the military, the Department of Defense. They took some of our batteries out to the Aberdeen Proving Ground on the East Coast in Maryland and put our batteries through some high temperature, high movement, really rugged testing to demonstrate that these batteries can hold up at these forward operating bases. And ultimately, we did deploy, helping the DoD avoid diesel generators that create a heat signature and lead acid batteries that weren't just performing the way they wanted to, dead on arrival. 2013, 2014, we began to expand our product line. That's when we introduced our Phi battery, which has been one of our best-selling batteries up to this date. We're going to talk a little bit about that later. 2015, 2016, we relaunched as SimpliPhi Power. We introduced that Access battery cabinet that you see there up top. And we also introduced some other ability to work with the military, this time with the Marine Corps. 2017, 2020, we were really excited to move into our new headquarters, open up a research and development facility. And this is all in Oxnard, California, which is just north of Los Angeles. We do assemble the batteries here in the United States. It's a great thing to say that, because what we're able to do is meet supply chain demands much more quickly. We're able to bring some of the R&D in-house, and we were able to introduce our new SimpliPhi battery, which is another battery we're going to talk about here in a minute. What I'm really excited about, and what some of the most recent news is that we are now acquired by Briggs & Stratton. Briggs & Stratton has been producing power equipment for over 100 years, so we're able to leverage all of that knowledge and all of that growth. And it really is giving SimpliPhi Power this robust platform for growth into the future. We've introduced our new energy storage system under partnership with the Briggs & Stratton, and we're going to talk about this a little bit today in the talk. You do see down in the right-hand picture, we've also introduced some high voltage solutions, containerized solutions, and we're going to get into that really quickly. Before we do, we're going to talk about some of the key features, then talk about products, and finally wrap it up with some of our training programs. As I mentioned before, safety has been something that we've always been focused on. And really, you don't have to take my word for it. Why? Because we went to the UL labs, right? The UL labs are these third-party laboratories that create testing standards. So we have UL 1642 under the cell level, the battery cells inside the battery modules, 1973 on the battery modules themselves, 9540 on the system level, and then 9540A is actually not a listing, it's a test protocol. So what they do, and we have entire hour-long talks that I just talk all about the 9540A, and if you're interested in something like that, take a look at some of our pre-recorded videos that we have up on our YouTube channel, or some of our upcoming ones for 9540A. Essentially, they took one of our battery cells in one of our battery modules and wrapped it with a thermal heating blanket and forced it into a thermal runaway. And then they watched what happened, right? Well, what happened? Not much. It kind of self-extinguished, which is what we want to happen. There's other chemistries that will start to have propagation, unmitigated propagation, where it's starting to spread cell to cell, battery to battery. So the report in 9540A helped dictate what the requirements were in 9540 for fire suppression systems in a system, maybe deflagration radiuses in a system, maybe heat detectors that are required in the systems. So again, UL listings were the 1642, 1973, and 9540. That's showing that we're safe. 9540A is something that's showing what happens. And we're really proud to say that we share that test report on our website, and you could go download it today and see for yourself the results. It's not that exciting because we didn't have much happen. Imagine you don't even care about UL, right? You know that your inspectors aren't asking for these UL listings. If they're not, they should be, and they will be soon. But why would you want them anyway? Well, maybe you're off-grid. What if you have an insurance adjuster coming out there for some reason? They might want to be looking for these UL listings. Off-grid properties, when you're selling them, you might need to be looking for these UL listings. So it's always important to buy any product out on the market that you know it has this UL listing, that it's been tested by a third party. As I mentioned in the beginning, we were known for safety. It's something that we've always focused on, but we're also proven and have a simple technology. Safe, as I mentioned before, we have that LFP, lithium iron phosphate chemistry, that's cobalt free. So it can still have a thermal runaway, but there's no risk of thermal runaway with propagation. So propagation is the idea that it starts to self-propagate, or unmitigated propagation, where it's spreading cell to cell and battery to battery. Ours does not, and you can see that in our 9540A test report. We've also got Department of Transportation certificates, right? So we can ship these LTL, we can air ship them. We've also been proven. We're one of the few battery manufacturers, if not the only one, that actually has batteries outliving their warranties in the market, right? We've been around for longer than 10 years, and we have a 10-year warranty on our battery. So it's really powerful to say that we can prove that we have had this decade of experience and growth, and we've been tested by the Department of Defense. One thing that I don't want to just skip over is that we have a business model that can demonstrate social impact and profitability can coexist. It's the so-called triple bottom line: people, planet, and profits. So, and that's great. A lot of people say that, but if you can go to our website and go to the IDEA program, and it talks about some of the projects we've worked on, we give 1% of gross back to this program, usually in the form of batteries or other balance of system components. So if you're somebody out there on this call this morning or the afternoon, maybe if you're on the East Coast and you got an idea, maybe it's a clinic, maybe it's a tribe, maybe it's a school or something, submit your idea to the IDEA program and we'll look to partner with you. I mentioned we manufacture, assemble these batteries in the United States. We're also simple. We've been known for making a battery that is a great drop-in lead acid battery replacement, right? As if it's a Magnesign, a Schneider, a Morningstar, a Victron piece of equipment, and you got lead acid batteries, pull those lead acid batteries out, drop in our batteries, and all you got to do is change some of those set points to treat our batteries the way they want to be treated. Give that homeowner, that business, the savings, the energy security that they're looking for with that backed up power. Really quickly, we're going to jump through these products, but down here are some of our Expeditionary series. These are smaller, lightweight, big Jenny, little Jenny packs. Here are some of our battery lineup. This is the Phi, the Amplify. We have some of our Access energy storage systems here. This is the Access. This is the Express down there at the bottom. And then finally, the high voltage line. So what can an energy storage system do? And I've heard them called battery, BESS now, battery energy storage systems, right? What can they do? They can help us save money. They can help protect us from failing infrastructure and keep our lights on when the power goes out. And they can help us be part of the decarbonization solution rather than part of the problem, right? I know here in California, my electrical rates are just going up every time I get a bill. We're up to almost 60 cents a kilowatt hour during those time of use rates. We can program an energy storage system to cover those time of use rates, those surge pricing rates, and help us save money. If you're off grid, if you're using a generator, you know exactly how much that propane delivery trucks are costing now. How much does diesel cost? How do we think about an energy storage system and a generator complementing each other, right? How do we use the generator to run at full capacity to charge up a battery bank and then shut that generator off, saving fuel, saving runtime on those generators, because a lot of those generators are warranted for a certain number of hours of runtime. That can help us save money, right? Energy storage systems can absolutely keep our lights on in our house when the power goes out. Our electrical grid is aging. It's not receiving the funding that it needs. And we're adding loads to it every day, right? Everyone's buying these electric cars. A lot of people are doing heat pumps, all electric homes. So we're just adding to the demand. Not everybody goes solar with storage for the environment, but it's something that a lot of people do think about. So decarbonization is an important topic that I want to make sure it's important to me. And I know it's important to a lot of you. So having the ability to use storage to store those intermittent generation sources from renewables is going to be part of the answer. I talked a little bit about peak shaving and how we can have an energy storage system help shave those. I talked a little bit about having an energy storage system shave off time of use rates during TOU, right? One exciting thing that recently came about is California's new net metering agreement. We were on net metering 2.0, which was very favorable to solar customers. The CPUC just released last week the proposed ruling, and I'm going to let Chuck here talk a little bit about really quickly the basics of that and how using integrated and solar plus storage can help us take advantage of that new net metering, and how the new ruling in California may be coming in across the country to other parts, and how that new ruling is going to make storage a much more important piece of the picture. So thank you, Chuck.
Thanks, Daniel. Yeah, it's a really interesting time in the solar industry where standalone solar has been a solution for really a lot of customers. But with the tax on net metering, not only in California, but in other utilities, we're starting to see either no export rate or a very low export rate, so very low cost per kilowatt hour that you're sending back to the grid. And on the right side here, we've got a graph showing our typical solar production in purple. And many of those hours may be very low export. In the afternoon, they may have a very high import rate. So what we're going to see is solar paired with storage to create a really good economic advantage. So instead of selling kilowatt hours to the grid in the morning, you're charging up your batteries. And then in the afternoon, when peak rates hit, maybe 50 cents a kilowatt hour, you're going to discharge your battery to your loads and avoid purchasing, So the economics of that and the net metering, net billing, as they're going to call it, are going to be profound. You may also have a utility that just doesn't offer you credit. So there is no motivation to export. Storage gives you the opportunity to keep that energy for when you need it later in the day.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck. That's a great point. A couple little items from that is that, from what I understand, Calcia did a great presentation on this. If you haven't found it, check it out. Customers that are on NEM 2.0 with solar and add storage after NEM 3.0 has come into effect can stay on their NEM 2.0 rate. That's a really powerful thing. So we're excited to see how that all shakes out. and we'll go forward from there, seeing. And if anybody wants to put in the Q&A what their takeaways or their thoughts of this new NEM ruling are, please pop them into the Q&A. It's an opportunity for us to have a little more discussion at the end of the talk. So we're going to talk about chemistry briefly, right? I mentioned that LFP is the chemistry we use. It doesn't have the same energy density as cobalt-based batteries do, but we don't care necessarily about energy density in stationary energy storage applications. So it was widely believed that we could mitigate the risk of cobalt-based chemistries by their size, right? So imagine your cell phone or your laptop. It has a cobalt-based battery, but it's a small battery. It has very little capacity. But as we're starting to scale up these energy storage systems to large-scale systems that we're putting on homes and businesses, we're also scaling up that risk. So by having LFP chemistry, we're not creating that much of potential of that risk. Chemistry isn't the whole answer. Form factor also matters. Cylindrical cells is the type of cell that we use in our batteries. So if you were to open it up, you'd see it, they kind of look like AA or maybe C batteries, I would call them. The cylindrical cell has a metal case, so it's able to contain any runaway event better than a pouch or prismatic cells. It offers better performance on charge and discharge ratings, and it's able to, usually there's an air gap between some of the cells, which allows it to not need an active cooling system. Pouch cells are prone to swelling and contraction during charge and discharge cycles. So are prismatic cells. Pouch cells have a very thin, almost aluminum foil kind of wrap to them, so they're prone to puncture. Prismatic cells usually tend to have a bigger cell capacity. The individual cells are much larger, so there's more capacity for energy for a thermal runaway event that does happen. Cylindrical cells are the most expensive of all the form factors, right? We have to have special assembly procedures. We have to wrap the cell or wrap the cylindrical cell. So it results in more money up front, but when you start to look at the performance, the safety, the lifespan that a cylindrical cell form factor gives you and that LFP chemistry, you start to see that it's actually, for the levelized cost of energy, it actually is a better value prop. And we'll talk a little bit about levelized cost of energy a little bit later. Warranty for our batteries is 10 years, unlimited cycles, 100% depth of discharge. Some of our competitors might say a certain number of throughput in megawatt hours, a certain number of cycles at a certain depth of discharge. We want to keep it simple. 10 years, unlimited cycles, 100% depth of discharge, and you're guaranteed 80% of that battery's capacity at the end of the life. That being said, I would like to see everyone sizing their batteries to 80% DOD or 20% stated charge. That's going to give your battery the most life after the warranty period is over. Temperatures, it's important to note that any battery, any lithium-ion battery should never be charged below freezing. If you're discharging it or the battery's sitting at idle, you can have a little bit of a wider temperature window. We do have entire trainings that talk simply about extreme environments. So again, if it's something that's interesting to you, take a look at our YouTube channel, and we have pre-recorded talks that talk about, what do we talk about? We talk about energy heating pads that are thermostatically controlled. We talk about temperature gradients between internal temperature and ambient temperatures of a battery. We talk about using fans. So there's lots of good stuff that if this extreme environments are something you care about, take a look at that. Or also reach out to us and we can talk about some of our other solutions. All of our batteries have a built-in battery management system. We have 3 types. Our standard Phi battery has an analog internal only battery management system that's mainly there for cell balancing, but it's going to give you overcurrent protection, short circuit protection, charge and discharge protection. It's really there as kind of the last line of defense to protect that battery. It's not an excuse for a poorly sized system or a poorly programmed system. The second type of battery management system we have is found in our SimpliPhi battery and our new SimpliPhi battery with Briggs & Stratton. And that one has a digital communications capable battery management system where it can transmit data to a piece of equipment that's supported, like a solar, like our new inverter, like an SMA Sunny Island. The third type of battery management system is our stack controller that's found in our high voltage solutions. All of the batteries do have a breaker. That's great for when you're servicing batteries. You can turn batteries off, isolate them if you have to do any troubleshooting. It also helps during install. You can shut a battery off and not risk shorting out the battery terminals if you got a wrench and you're tightening down one of those lugs. Once everything is all safe and let line, then you can go ahead and turn those breakers back on. The ability to charge and discharge a battery is really crucial to understand that if you have, say, a generator running, well, if the generator can run at full tilt, at full power, and charge the batteries up in a quick time window, you can shut that generator off. So our batteries have a C rate of 2, C over 2. That means you can charge or discharge our batteries completely in a 2-hour period. A lot of lead acid batteries, people might remember in this call, are C over 20 or C over 10. And if you're really hammering on the battery, C over 5. And if you pay attention to the lead acid battery, its capacity is rated on its C over 20 rate. And as soon as you start to discharge that battery faster than C over 20, the capacity of the battery is actually at a much lower rated. So it's important to note that our batteries, 75 amp hours at 48 volts for the Phi 3.8, is at that C over 2 rate. So the takeaway here is that you can charge and discharge this battery relatively quickly and take advantage of power when you have it. Also, you can discharge it pretty quickly too to support loads that it needs. Being able to scale battery systems up is something that's been a kind of a foundation of one of our values since the beginning. The idea that you can take our batteries and use them as building blocks to make the size system you need in relatively small increments, not these huge, large, maybe 13.5 kilowatt hour increments. Let's do, and you need 15. Well, the only option is to add one more battery, you're at 26. So by scaling at either a 5 kilowatt hour level or a 3.8 kilowatt hour increment, we can scale up. Expandability is another idea that is very uncommon in some of our competitors. So what do I mean by expand? That means you're sitting down with the homeowner and you've sold them maybe they don't have you're trying to sell them a system and maybe they don't have the money to go with a large system up front. That's fine, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner. What we can do is get you in the door, get a system that's going, and then we can always expand to that battery bank later. And I always get the question, they say, Dan, how long can I expand a system after it's already been installed? I like to say usually 2 to 3 years. Any more than that, you're going to start to see some imbalances in the battery system. The batteries degrade over time. That's just normal with a battery. And new batteries are going to act like the existing batteries in the system. So what you see here on the left is a picture of something that we scaled up. This is an airport hangar out in Hawaii where we've scaled up 80 of our batteries to 300 kilowatt hours. Picture on the right is the ability to expand. We took a system that had 8 batteries. We came back around and added 8 more. And we were able to keep that same combiner there and keep that same sunny island you see in the picture. Like any sealed battery, it's not going to vent or release gas, and it doesn't need to be watered over time. Whenever we would sell lead acid batteries, we would always want to talk about a maintenance package, right? We're going to come back and make sure we do specific gravity checks on these lead acid batteries. We're going to add water. Usually customers say, no, Dan, I don't need that. I'll take care of it myself. And inevitably you come back a year or two later, you get a call, or you get a call a year or two later saying that the system's down. Please come out. No problem. We're rolling a truck. And you come out, they find out they didn't water the battery. So being self-contained and not needing water or maintenance is a great advantage. Also, the batteries have a low self-discharge rate. It's not like your car battery or your truck battery or even a deep cycle lead acid battery. They really hold their charge less than 1% per month. So you could have a battery sitting there for a year, and you could come back and know that you're still going to have that power ready to go. So this is what it can look like for a drop-in lead acid battery replacement system. That picture on the left there is a bunch of Trojan, I think L16s. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chuck. With a
Looks
bunch
right.
of, yeah, did I get it right? Okay. 6 volt, right? It looks like, because there's, yep. And look at all that corrosion paste. Well, we were able to come in. On the picture on the right is a battery bank that has just as much energy capacity, right, in kilowatt hours or amp hours, and it has just as much discharge power rating. So it's able to support loads just the same as the picture on the left. Picture on the left was probably only being cycled down to 50% SOC. Picture on the left was probably being sized for a discharge at C over 20. The picture on the right can be discharged all the way. Picture on the right can be discharged at C over 2. So drop-in lead acid replacement is something that's very powerful to do, and it's great to build that relationship with customers, because inevitably you can also sell new components down the road. We talked a little bit about the SimpliPhi already. We're just going to run through these really quickly. SimpliPhi is our communications capable in battery. So it's just like our Phi 3.8, which doesn't have communications. And it's not that the SimpliPhi is better than the Phi. If you have pieces of equipment that aren't communications capable, like an old MagnaSign or something, there's no reason to buy this SimpliPhi, because there's nothing, you're just paying for something you don't need. If you do have a solar, an SMA, or maybe our new inverter, go ahead and go for the SimpliPhi, because we know that the SimpliPhi is going to be able to communicate to that piece of equipment, auto-populate set points, transmit its temperature. If this battery starts to get too cold or too warm, it has a built-in 10K thermistor. It will tell the piece of equipment to either ramp down my charge rate or stop charging me altogether, because you're going to damage me. So there's much more safety built into that. It can also transmit its state of charge. A lot of pieces of equipment, a lot of older inverters have a tough time determining the state of charge of a lithium-ion battery. And here's why. If you have a chart, or a graph, I should say, and one axis is state of charge, and the other axis is voltage, for a lithium-ion battery, a small change in voltage can represent a very large change in state of charge. It's a very flat curve until you get to the two ends. The SimpliPhi battery has a shunt built into it. So it's measuring amps in, amps out, and it's then transmitting that up to the piece of equipment. So you're getting a much more accurate reading. That being said, the Phi battery isn't something that's not able to work great. And there are external shunts, like a Victron, a BMV 712 is a great one. The SimpliPhi battery only comes in 48 volts. The Phi battery, the non-communications capable battery here, comes in both 24 and 48 volts. It has that simple integrated battery management system, mainly there to protect itself in cell balancing. We do offer a smaller battery, the Phi 1.4. This is 12 or 24 volts. I found these popular in mobile applications, like all of these Sprinter van conversions that you're seeing around, or maybe marine applications that has the ABS plastic case, so it's a little bit better at corrosion resistance. Still has that same battery management system, the same breaker that you find in our other Phi battery. I did want to talk a little bit about our little Jenny, big Jenny, in light of a lot of the earthquakes that we have, not earthquakes, but potential earthquakes, right, Chuck? And hurricanes that are coming across the country. These are great pieces, because this is something you can take with you.
Or a snowstorm, if it's going to snow and knock out the power, that could be a handy thing to have in the house.
Yep,
Keep
exactly.
some loads running.
Yep, something you don't have to hardwire. We do have the Express system. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. It's one of our smaller of our energy storage systems. This one doesn't need to be hardwired either. It has a DC inlet, so you can go ahead and just connect up some solar panels. This charge controller right here is going to make sure you don't overcharge your batteries. We have a nice MagnaSign in there, and that's going to help keep the batteries charged when not in operation, right? Because we have an AC inlet. but we also have an AC outlet. So what I always find these great to use is whenever we're doing service changes at a homeowner's house. Maybe they're going from 100 amps to 200 amps, and we got the utility companies cut power in the morning, and we're doing a new riser or underground, whatever we got. Maybe there's an elderly couple inside the house. Well, we can run a couple extension cords out of this piece of equipment, let them make lunch, give them a TV, the internet, and there's also a couple extra outlets for the guys to charge up their tools or run a saw. So a great portable unit. A permanent mounted system is our access unit. This is comes with a couple of different inverters. There's the Sol-Arc there. We're going to soon be offering our new inverter. And we have a Schneider XW Pro option as well. This comes in a NEMA 3R weatherproof kind of cabinet. So it's great to come out to an existing site. Maybe they have some Enphase already there. Maybe they have some an old SMA. Well, we can easily AC couple in some of that existing solar, tie it in, and then go ahead and feed it back onto the main, or feed it back to a critical loads panel if you got the backup side isolated. We do have 9540A listed on this piece of equipment. So if your inspectors are starting to ask for that, this is a great option. We also have the 9540A listing on our two Boss 6 and Boss 12 cabinets, and you can have the Sol-Arc external mounted on the wall. And again, this is basically the access cabinet, but instead of the inverter being up top, we just added more batteries here. High voltage solutions, this is something that I'm not an expert in. If it is, email me and we can connect you up with one of our engineers that works on these larger high voltage solutions. Essentially what I hear is you pour us a concrete pad, we'll drop a container out there on your site with everything inside that needs it, with the communications ready to go. So 1 megawatt hour, I've heard, is what you can do in one of these containers. So we're going to quickly finish off with some of these products, talk a little bit quickly about levelized cost of energy, and then round it out with some of our training opportunities in the future. I'm really excited to be partnering with Briggs and have Briggs be, now we're part of their family, and releasing our new energy storage system. So we've always been known, and we still are known, for having batteries that are compatible with other people's pieces of equipment. Not Enphase isn't going to let you use their battery with other pieces. Solar Edge isn't going to let you use their batteries with other people's equipment. We do, and we have been. That's what we've been known for, these Phi and Amplify batteries. We do see how the industry is going, and how it's going is these vertically integrated energy storage systems, where it's one manufacturer making the inverter charger, one company making the battery, and one company making the app. And the app, actually, a lot of time and energy and money went into that app. And homeowners and dealers alike are wanting a powerful app that they can see how power is flowing in and out of their home. What's their battery level? Can I make some changes? Maybe I know a storm is coming in. Let's put it into a power reserve module. Installers like good apps because it allows them to do fleet management, allows them to do remote reconfiguration of other customer systems without having to do a truck roll, and allows them to have that conversation with the customer to let them know, hey, I'm monitoring your system. I have fleet management, so you don't have to worry about it. We're here for you, and that really allows you to maintain a relationship with a lot of these customers. The last thing I want to see all you and do is go out to a site, install some solar and some batteries, and then run away back to your truck and drive away. No, let's maintain that relationship with the customer, letting them know we can expand the system, letting them know that we have an app that we can monitor them. That's what's going to prove useful when they have referrals. That's what's going to prove useful when somebody's asking for a reference, and then you can turn them back to that homeowner that loves you. Really quickly, the inverter, 6K inverters, but you can scale them up. We can scale up to 9 inverters up to 54 kilowatts. It has the really quick transfer time, 8 milliseconds, so you're not going to see your lights flicker. You might see a little flicker in the lights. but you're not going to have to reset your clocks. 10-year warranty, IP65 rated on this inverter, so you're able to put these outside now. And I'm seeing that a lot in a lot of jurisdictions. They don't want them in garages anymore. And if you are doing them in garages, we're talking about parking bollards. We're talking about having to put dry X-Rock or really thick dry fire-rated drywall in the garage. They want to see heat detectors, not smoke detectors. So putting things outside is going to make it a little bit easier to get these things permitted. We still can get it indoors if we have to, and we have that 9540A to show the inspectors just how safe it can be inside. But you could do this indoor or outdoors. Likewise, the new SimpliPhi battery is outdoor rated. It has that same warranty. So this battery here has the same chemistry, same safe form factor, and the same battery management system as our SimpliPhi battery. It's just been scaled up to this 5 kilowatt, it's 4.95, but 5 kilowatt hour battery form. And it's also outdoor rated, so we can go ahead and install these outside. Same closed loop communications with that same 10-year warranty. I think I already said that. We talked about the app. It's important to have a great app, and this is what homeowners see. Right back in the day when we had off-grid customers, they would go out to the shed and tell you what the float voltage was, or the bulk, or look at this or that. Homeowners don't do that anymore. They don't even go outside anymore. They just sit there on their app and look at it. So having a slick app is something that I'm really proud to say. Installers like this because they can reconfigure systems, do fleet management. One thing before we leave this slide is that Briggs is hosting all of this data on internal servers. So all of the homeowner's information and your client's information is all hosted in the United States on Briggs servers. So we know that it's really secure. And some homeowners that resonates more with than others. So it's something that if they're concerned about, you can play that up. I talked a little bit earlier about how our batteries have usually a higher upfront price because we're using a safer chemistry, a safer form factor, and we've put a lot of added value into that inverter. The inverter has built-in rapid shutdown, built-in 2-wire generator start, built-in MPPT charge controllers. So when you start to account for the life of the system and all of the extra parts and pieces that you don't need when installing our system, you can see that actually the lifetime cost or the installed cost of our systems is lower. And when you're talking to a homeowner and you got 2 proposals on the kitchen table, sometimes it's hard for that to get across. And what I found always works is using math, right? Math doesn't lie. And have this, we're going to send out this presentation to everyone. Have your computer or laptop or tablet or whatever ready to go at the kitchen table and pull up this math equation. You don't have to do it because we actually have a link to the calculator here. But what you do is you take the price of the battery, you divide it by its capacity, its rated capacity, the number of cycles it's warranted for, its round trip efficiency, plus its warranted depth of discharge, and that's going to give you the price, the cost for every kilowatt hour you put into the battery and take out. And that's when you start to see the true lifetime cost of a battery, not just its upfront price. That right there is going to show you that we're definitely under lead acid batteries by a lot. And we also beat a lot of our competitors. That's not even accounting for ancillary costs, like I mentioned, about needing ventilation equipment, cooling equipment, truck rolls to do maintenance for watering the batteries. So using math takes us out of that salesperson role and puts us into that energy consultant role that I like to have that attitude when I'm sitting down with customers. There's 2 sizing things I want to talk about. One is sizing for capacity, or how much energy in kilowatt hours or amp hours you need for a system. When it comes to sizing, you can size to 100% depth of discharge, knowing you're going to use all of that 3.8 kilowatt hours in the Phi or SimpliPhi. if you're cycling the battery a lot, maybe it's on a off-grid home, maybe you're doing a lot of time of use arbitrage, let's size for an 80% depth of discharge. Only plan on using 3 kilowatt hours out of that 3.8, because we know that we're going to give that battery the most life after that 10-year warranty period. But if the battery is just sitting there on waiting for an outage, or maybe just occasionally doing peak demand, having the 90 or 100% depth of discharge is totally acceptable. Other sizing concept I want to cover is how fast you can charge or discharge a battery. I talked about earlier how the amplified battery can communicate to pieces of equipment and tell that piece of equipment, hey, there's only 2 batteries here. Don't exceed this charge or discharge rate. When we're working with the Phi batteries, I always want to see that the battery should be sized to twice the inverter's output capability. So what does that mean? This is my example I always use. See that 8,000 watt radian you got sitting on the wall there? I know that each of those Phi 3.8 batteries is capable of discharging at C/2. So if I have 3,800 divided by 2, that means each battery is capable of charging or discharging at 1.9 kilowatts. So I take my 8,000 watt radian divided by 1,900, that's 4.2. I need to round up. That means I need at least 5 of our batteries in that system, because I can't tell that radian not to discharge at any lower than what it wants to. So if you got 8,000 watts being called to come out of that radian, and you have less than 5 batteries, you're going to exceed the continuous charge or discharge rating of those batteries. In this example, there's a lot more than 5 batteries, so we know that we're good here. Also in this example, look at all those outback. Those will either FM80s or FM100s. I'm not too worried about the DC side, because I know that the charge controllers can be programmed to limit their charge rate, and I know that that charge controller is going to hold at that. I know also that that radian isn't going to not output 8,000 watts if the homeowners plug in a whole bunch of stuff in. So the 2 concepts there, we're sizing for energy and we're sizing for power. You don't have to remember any of that, because why? Because we have calculators online. This first calculator here is simple battery bank sizing, days of autonomy, depth of discharge, your consumption. The second link down here is a little bit more in depth. It starts asking you for pieces of equipment, so to make sure pieces of equipment are compatible. The last calculator there, I'm not going to go on these. You can click on them yourself. This one is talking about simple lead acid battery replacements. I got 8 Trojan T105s. How many Phi or Amplify or SimpliPhi batteries do I need to replace that system? When it comes time to doing installs, please, everyone read the manual spec sheets. If there's one thing you're going to read, if there's one thing you're going to print out and have in the van or the truck, is our integration guides. We spent a lot of time and energy making these integration guides. So if you go to that link, our website product documentation, there are these guides for specific manufacturers like Magnum, Victron, Schneider, Solarc, that tell you how to program that piece of equipment, usually in the order that that piece of equipment is asking you to the set points. So you just run through the menus, have our integration guide. It's going to tell you what low battery cutout voltage, what's the charge, discharge max rates, help you get everything programmed properly. When you are installing these batteries, we do sell these wall brackets. I did show you earlier the Boss 12 and Boss 6 cabinets. There's also a lot of different custom options as well. You can really put these batteries in any orientation except upside down and except for stacking the batteries. You can put them right next to each other. It might be a little more heat generated, but that's totally acceptable. And that's how we passed our 9540A testing, is with no clearance between batteries. When you're wiring batteries, it's important to understand that we never wire our batteries in series, always in parallel. And when we are doing parallel connections, we want conductors of the same gauge and the same length going from batteries to a common terminal point, like a bus bar or a combiner box. And then from that piece of equipment up to the inverter, up to the charge controllers. That way you're making sure there's no impedance in the system and that each battery is working just as hard as the next. That's the Midnight Solar 1000 amp combiner you see there in that picture. We also do have our own bus bars that you'll see here. Yeah, they were in the previous pictures, and I can point them out here in a second as well. Please, when you're tightening down the battery lugs, don't let one of your technicians go to town with an impact driver on one of the battery lugs. Go out to the van, get your torque wrench. 160 inch-pounds is what I want to see on your torque wrench. Ideally, that would be an insulated torque wrench, but remember, we have breakers built into the battery, so you can turn the battery off and know that you're not going to get a big pop if you do short it out. We're going to really quickly run through some examples. Here is a Solarc DC coupled large example system. Here's the Tigo rapid shutdown transmitter, giving the keep alive signal to these Tigo TS4F, I think they are, our solar panels. So we got DC coming down off the roof, DC feeding into that Solarc, DC charging the batteries. Only when we need to use either or feedback to the grid or feed critical loads do we turn it back into AC. And that Solarc will feed this critical load subpanel. Over here, non-backed up loads with grid here. This is an example of what it looks like with our new inverter. Again, DC coupled system here. Batteries are our internal SimpliPhi batteries, the 4.98s. We still got non-backed up loads here. Non-backed up loads here, I'm sorry. Backed up loads up here. Here's grid. In this example, I want to demonstrate how generators can integrate into energy storage systems. Internal to our new inverter is, like I mentioned, 2-wire generator start. So if those batteries start to get dead, there's no sun, it's cloudy out, it's nighttime, we can send a 2-wire signal to start up that generator, charge those batteries up, and then shut that generator off. And usually I don't charge the batteries all the way up, maybe around 80 or 90%, and then shut that generator down. So with that, I'm going to let Chuck finish this off with a plug for our installer program. And then we'll also, now is a great time to put in any Q&As, questions, not answers. If you got an answer, go ahead and pop them in there too. Or any thoughts on the new NEM 3.0. I'd love to hear people's thoughts on that. And then it looks like we're a little ahead of time, so we should be able to wrap this up by the top of the hour. But go ahead, Chuck, and take it away with our installer program.
Thanks, Daniel. So we'll go over the IQ program real quick, and then we'll go through some questions we've got. The IQ program is, one of SimpliPhi's pillars is training. We're making sure that you guys know what to do in the field with our product, and to that end, that the consumer knows where to find an installer who does know what to do with the product. So we've got IQ certified installers and distributors marked on our map. And so you can zoom into your area and say, okay, I'm in Northern California. Where are my closest IQ installers? Where are my closest distributors? To be an IQ installer, you're going to get a newsletter. You're going to get listed on our website, and we have a rebate program started earlier this year. So if you have qualifying warranty registration since you became an IQ installer, we can give you a $25 rebate per battery. That'll stack up pretty quickly. We also have a photo contest where we're highlighting the product, but really we want to see the people. We want to see installers, homeowners. Is there a dog? We'd love to see the dog. The winner of that monthly contest gets $250, and the photos roll. So if you submitted in September and didn't win, don't be bummed out. You can have another shot. We keep looking at the photos, picking the best ones. If you want to sign up for our program, it's super simple. You can go to our website, follow the link, submit a form. We're going to have a follow-up call, and we're going to discuss the program, your installation company's qualifications, and get you in. We want to keep people on that training path that I was talking about, up to date with our newest products, releases, and just, best practices. We also have self-paced trainings through the Briggs & Stratton Power Academy. These are going to be eventually including our NABCEP certified courses like you're in right now. But for now, they're kind of an overview. It's, maybe it's after hours or it's a slow time. You want to launch training. You can go here, log in, and do similar trainings to what we're doing in these weekly webinars.
Yeah,
All
thank
right.
you.
And to get your NABCEP credit, you're going to want to email us at training@simpliphipower.com. I can see that there's over 60 participants. We won't necessarily issue a certificate for just showing up. You need to email us and request it. Then we'll send it out to you and you can turn it into NABCEP to keep your CE credits up.
Yeah, and one thing on that is be sure to include spell out your full and last name carefully so that we get it right. And with that, Chuck, let's see what kind of questions we got.
Yeah, we got a bunch of them. Zach asks, with the DOT certifications, can you ship them internationally by air? The answer to that is no, not yet. Currently, international shipping is going to be by sea. We are working on certifications to get further, but that's where we're at right now. Chris asks about the 80% depth of discharge and expected efficiency, which I believe is capacity of the battery at end of life. So we are warranting to 80%. Now that's going to be dependent, not dependent on your depth of discharge. So at year 10, if you've been nice to your batteries, we still guarantee it'll be 80%. We anticipate through having these batteries in the field that if your depth of discharge is 80%, you will likely have more, but we're not going to warranty to that. We're warranting to 80%, which is really better than the industry. A lot of the batteries out there are warranting to 70%. That 10% difference, if you're cycling that battery during peak hours, those are more kilowatt hours that you have available. So, if you are treating your battery nice with an 80% depth of discharge, we anticipate more and a longer life. But the warranty is written specifically to say 80%.
And that's a great point. That's a great point, Chuck, is that and that's why we come out with cost of lifetime is better. Yeah, so at an 80% depth of discharge, you can expect about 10,000 cycles.
And then Ruth asks about RV owners and looking for shore power. Not RV owners, so I had to Google that one real quick. And I think what you're referring to, Ruth, is the ability for your RV to essentially go off grid, not be running the energy to take the engine, take care of recharging your batteries. And no, we don't have a product that plug and play retrofits an RV to do that. However, you may find that whatever battery came in your RV, might be a lead acid, might be an AGM battery, you might be able to get more capacity with one of our batteries. So your typical operation may last longer. I would check with your RV specialist about any retrofits to make them rolling off grid.
Yeah, and I would also argue that our batteries are lighter weight, right? When mobile applications, weight matters. So you can get eliminate a couple extra 100 pounds and add some extras to the thing.
And as we cruise through these questions, if I'm totally missing the point, hop back in and correct me. Brian asks if we have plans to release a SimpliPhi inverter greater than 6 kW. And, we're always watching market trends and we're continuing to innovate. But right now we've got the 6K, it stacks. You can stack up to 54 kW using the 6K inverter. It's a lot of peak power. There's not a lot of applications out there that require more than 54 kW. So, we think we're hitting a sweet spot in the market, giving you that stackability.
Yeah, and I think a reason a lot of people do 7.2 or 6 kilowatt inverters is that it's a 40 amp breaker output. And that way we can backfeed into a 200 amp panel and not exceed the 120% rule. And exactly like you said, Chuck, one of our philosophies has been stacking.
And Drew points out about monitoring and how, your typical grid-tied system, maybe with Enphase or with another competitor, will give you production consumption, battery level. That's a relatively new concept. We're talking about having, putting an off-grid system owners, putting an app in their hand. That is pretty revolutionary. When we look back at some of these earlier off-grid inverters that people have been integrating our batteries with, there was no monitoring. You're going into a Mate 3 to try and figure out, what your discharge was over the past. So we still think it's a pretty good feature. Yes, it's becoming commonplace in the industry, but we are straddling two different parts of the industry. There's this off-grid part that's been around, a little bit more outdated, and then there's this new grid-tied side where we're really blending the best of both those worlds together. And Drew also asks about the levelized cost of energy for in and out of a battery. Do you have a number in your back pocket, Daniel?
So that equation, that equation, the levelized cost of energy, and that calculator is on a website. So again, we're talking about if for every watt hour you put into a battery and take out of the battery, there's some round trip efficiencies, and that's part of that equation. And that link will open up a lot of those different, it'll go more in depth on that math there. Just for the sake of time, we didn't have the opportunity to jump too quickly into the math on this one, but absolutely it is accounted for.
Yeah, Drew, I'd say that sounds about right. I wouldn't want to comment with an actual number without running it. Like Daniel said, I'm a fan of math, and we have the calculator to do it. Ruth asks, what integrated parts would be repairable? I believe you're looking at like field swappable components if there's an issue. Some of our competitors have done that. They've got power control boards or communication boards that they'll actually send you out to swap in the inverter. And that's kind of a pain, really, right? We don't have plans to be doing field swappable components in our inverter. To your point, if something happened, we'd be looking at replacing the unit. And thank you, Ruth. Our integration guides are fantastic. If you haven't used them, it's a really good way to get through commissioning. It gives you all the set points you need in the order that they'll come up on the device. So super handy. Will the battery charge below freezing? Thanks, Steve. That's a really good question. And the answer is no. And this is not a brand problem. This is a chemistry problem. When you have lithium-ion cells freezing and you force a charge into them, they actually damage the cell in a way that it will no longer be able to accept a charge in the future. So what we're doing is we're saying keep the battery warm enough and it'll continue to charge. And then especially with our SimpliPhi batteries and closed-loop communications, if it's anticipated that that battery cell is too cold to take a charge, it'll actually tell the inverter to stop forcing. So again, a chemistry question, not a brand question. Any lithium-ion battery out there should not be taking a charge below freezing.
Yeah, and further, if the SimpliPhi tells the inverter that don't charge me below freezing and the inverter doesn't listen, the SimpliPhi battery will actually open up, the BMS will open up and prevent that. With the Phi, we don't have that same protection, so it's very important that we're keeping those batteries not charging below freezing, like Chuck said.
Barry asks about a backup system for a small airport, which is a slide that Daniel had highlighted in the presentation. Yeah, we can absolutely help you with that. One of our sales applications engineers would be the appropriate person to get you through that kind of pre-design, what do you need, how you're going to get that through your AHJ. Reach out to us at that training@simpliphipower.com email. We'll put you in touch with somebody who can get you what you need, Steve. Or I'm sorry, Barry. Yes, all the links, James, will be sent to you. The entire slide deck will go out to all registered participants. So you will get that information that Daniel presented. So Ruth clarifies, it's not for a mobile RV, it's going to be a camping and plugging in. We're building a system in a remote location using solar PV and batteries and a gen set to feed that plug. Yeah, it sounds like you're building an external standalone system to that RV parking spot, right? You could absolutely look at our SimpliPhi battery and inverter combo. You may need some additional pieces of equipment to complement that.
Yep, and our sales application engineers can help you with that too.
Yeah, so again, shoot us an email at training and we'll put you in touch with the right person. Couple more as we approach the hour. Brian asks, would there be a 3.8K inverter for a 100 amp main electrical panel? So Brian's referring to the 120% rule and not wanting to overload that bus bar with a 6K. We do not have a 3.8 SimpliPhi inverter. You could look at a different manufacturer, or you could set it up for backup only where you're not feeding loads in that main. So your SimpliPhi 6K, now you'd run into a similar problem there with the 120% rule, wouldn't you? That for that particular one, if you can't interrupt between the meter and the main, the inverter might not be the right fit. It's not going to be the right fit for every installation. There are products out there where you could use our battery on an inverter that would fit on that bus bar and give you the configuration you
There may
need.
be other workarounds too. I would say, Brian, email our sales application engineers, because there can be ways to isolate loads off that 100 amp. There may be a way to program, and I have to check on this, to program the output of our inverter to limit it to say 20 amps or whatever is necessary. So email us, and I hate to have to upgrade a panel, but there might be some workarounds where we can use breakers and the such to make it happen.
And once again, do we provide a PDF of that presentation? Yes, it'll be emailed out to you after the show. And Ruth says, cool, thanks. Well, thank you, Ruth.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. Again, if you need NAPCEP credit, please go ahead and email training@simpliphipower.com. Keep a lookout for upcoming trainings. If you're interested in that extreme environments, charge and discharge, 9540A, if that's stuff you're interested in. And if anybody is excited about NEM 3.0, as I am, stay tuned. We're going to hopefully be having a training here soon. Thank you, everyone. Take care.